Now here's a game I've been wanting to complete for more than half my life, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. I've had access to a couple other Goemon games I could have covered on this channel first, but for me, I had to start with this one. This was one of the many N64 games we rented from our local video shop back when I was 5, and the only game we had was Super Mario 64, one of few we rented twice actually. I didn't get very far either time, and after returning it, I never remembered its name, but I always vaguely remembered that N64 game with the spiky haired guy and his silly friend. It was only when I was 12 and I discovered a game station, back when they were still around, that sold games from before the current generation, PS2, GameCube, Xbox at the time, around where my grandparents used to shop weekly. They had this game for months, and that's how I finally got to find out its name, and I bought that copy with some of my 13th birthday money. So I finally owned the game, but I could never finish it because it's one of those games that requires the N64 control pack. One of the worst memory cards I have had to deal with, and the only ones I'd had never lasted long. But I would still constantly play this game from the beginning, slowly getting a bit further most times before I'd have to turn it off and lose all my progress. The last time I did so I was probably still 13 or maybe 14, so it's been at least 16 years since I last touched this game. That changed when I finally went and bought one of those new custom control packs that are supposed to last 100 years or whatever, so now I could finally record this game without the risk of the memory card dying mid-playthrough. But before we move on, that intro brought me back. At the time I had no idea the singer was Hironobu Kageyama, the guy who sung exactly 12,000 Dragon Ball Z songs. Enough of my life story though, let's start the game. We see everyone in Oedo Town just living their lives until Goemon and his friend Ebisumaru are kicked out of a shop, because Ebisumaru thought that stripping off in the middle of a shop would get him a discount. As they debate its effectiveness, a huge peach-shaped spaceship flies overhead. And this is feudal Japan, though in this series something like this is not exactly an uncommon sight. It heads towards Oedo Castle where the Lord and Princess Yuki live. Some dude called Baron on the ship reports their arrival, and a mysterious man and woman have a good chuckle while the ship fires a laser at the castle. The Lord and Princess are engulfed, and when the light fades, they find that the beam has transformed Oedo Castle into a European-style castle. That was stage 1 of the Mystery Pairs plan, and they fly off. Goemon and Ebisumaru can't believe the Lord's castle was targeted yet again, and they run off to deal with it. We begin gameplay in Goemon's house since Ebisumaru had to go back and get dressed. Goemon starts with 2 weapons, the smoking pipe he hits his enemies with, and our money. He can throw the ryo he carries as a projectile. I try to avoid using the ryo unless I really need to, so I'll be sticking with the pipe. I leave the house and get exploring Oedo Town. The first woman I talk to outside says that someone will be moving into one of the neighbouring houses soon, but it'll be a while before that fact becomes relevant. But yeah, no one's really that fussed about the whole alien attack thing. In one of the houses I get to learn that the reason one of the houses is empty is that Mokubei the pipe maker used to live there, but he's since moved inside of Mount Fuji. Back outside I can pick up some money in the water, each coin being worth 5 ryo. I can also freely swap between Goemon and Ebisumaru, who right now just has a hammer and his more eccentric animations when moving. I then go through the door to the right when leaving Goemon's house. This street is mainly filled with shops. I don't actually bother with them much because the game isn't that hard, so I'm not wasting money on temporary power-ups. The inns are important though, as that's where you can save your game. But yeah, the people in this world are just odd, so it's a bit like a mother game, where you want to talk to everyone you can just to see the terrible puns and insane anachronisms they come out with. Every town has a coffee shop, and this one is kind of important as inside we can talk to Omitsu, Goemon's girlfriend. I didn't know about this since I just always had the first chunk of the game's progression burned into my mind, so I just beeline past all early NPC stuff. Fans seem to despise Omitsu, but based on this game I can't see why. I presume it's mainly for shipping reasons, as there's always been a far more prominent woman who's consistently playable unlike her, who has never been. I go through the big door opposite the coffee shop, but that leads out of town and the gatekeepers aren't having it. I jump off the side of the bridge and swim along the canal to this platform containing my first Silver Fortune doll. These are the game's equivalent to a heart piece from Zelda. Collect 4 to gain an extra heart to my maximum health. I swim through a tunnel nearby and on the next screen climb up the ladder. The woman up here says that the bridge to Oedo Castle has been destroyed. I go through the door and, sure enough, no bridge. Just these star blocks that a sign says I can attach to with a chain pipe. Well, I don't have one of those, and the pipe maker's gone off to Mount Fuji, so it looks like that's my first destination. Back through the door I cross the bridge to another door to another area of town. There's a guy who will give me directions to Mount Fuji, but even 16 years later, that route is burned into my mind. I keep going through the red gate and turn right to go through the door there. There's only one building on this screen, the Fortune Tellers. Another of the images that always stuck with me from those first rentals was the Fortune Teller, Plasma Man. You don't forget Plasma Man. We won't be seeing much of him though. Round the corner from this place, Dog's Talk by the way, is the door leading out of town, where we get hit by the theme to Kai Highway. I'd say one of the most iconic N64 music tracks outside of Nintendo stuff. I get my first enemies here, a robot doll that fights by just running into me, and a weird floating biting lion head thing. By just heading in a straight line from the entrance, I can reach the only building in this area, Kai's coffee shop. There's a travel merchant in here who'll sell me a map of Japan for a discount. After accepting his offer, he's so happy he just lets me have the map for free. I'm not sure if I've ever obtained this before since I usually just ignored the coffee shop to get through the beginning parts I was repeating quicker. I also learned that Goemon's giant robot friend Impact has become a big movie star in the US, centuries before movies or the US would exist, so that's pretty impressive. I can look at the map of the game's world through the pause menu. Not that useful overall, but I still needed it for the 100%. Going north from the coffee shop, I can cross this bridge. I get a variant of the robot dolls, this one being green and holding a box that opens up to shoot cannonballs. I can see the door I need to go through, but first I cross another bridge to the east, and in the northeast corner of the screen is my second Silver Fortune doll. I then go back and jump up the steps to this door. It leads to Mount Fuji. I climb the ladder right in front of me and get running across the wooden floor. Up here is my first Scarecrow turret, fires 2 shots at once but can't move. I go past the next ladder and jump to the next platform where I get hit by a falling boulder and find my third Silver Fortune doll. I then go back and climb that ladder to the next floor. On this one I have more boulders to avoid while jumping across the platforms. Dropping down when I reach the next ladder has me find these golden dumplings, which are a full heal. I go back up and up the next ladder, then across a short floor to another ladder. This floor has sections that rotate, but they're slow enough that it's not a problem. Then at the end I can enter the mountain. I have to climb these stairs while avoiding these spring things. I have no clue what they are or what to call them, but you can't damage them, only avoid them and climb past. I next have another rotating bridge to cross and more steps with springs to climb up to reach the exit and end up back outside. I run across this next floor to another ladder to the next floor, which is about half or a third the width of the rest. It leads to one last ladder to another door back inside. In the middle here is the new house Mokube has moved to. You pick your spots, don't you? Ask him why he even did it and he says he moved here to train to be Japan's best worker. I next ask him to do said job and make me a pipe, so he gives me the chain pipe. Used for attaching to star blocks, it can also be used as a weapon, but it only extends out in a straight line as opposed to the swinging motion of the normal pipe, so it's a bit awkward. But now I can get into Oedo Castle. Wanna know another great thing about this game? No fall damage. Return to Oedo Town and the original music, an instrumental version of the opening song, is replaced with the track you hear in Mokube's house in the coffee shops once you get the chain pipe. I never got why this change was made to happen, but the original only plays for that short amount of time, so it's a shame to lose it. Travelling back to the castle, I have to deal with the pickpocket on this screen. If you don't hit him first, he'll steal 50 Ryo from you. Back to the screen with the star blocks, I first chain over the blocks on the left, then walk around the wall to reach my 4th Silver Fortune doll and get my health increase. I then take the blocks on the right to reach the remains of the bridge and go through the door at the end. I have to run up a few hills and through a door to the next screen, where the entrance to Oedo Castle is. I can also save my game by reading the castle's sign next to the door. I then enter. So, transformed Oedo Castle, the first dungeon. First thing I do? Well, the first room has all these jars I can smash open for a lot of money. So I break them, leave, and come back in over the next few minutes until I've built up over 1000 Ryo. I then go through the door opposite the entrance. To the right in this room is a door with a silver lock, and to the left are a few pits to chain across to find the silver key that unlocks it. Falling into a pit just results in reloading the room and taking minor damage. I unlock the door into this room with a huge fence surrounding a pool. I start by running across the first board to find the Mr. Elephant at the end. These give me access to the dungeon map. Jumping into the water, I can swim across to this moving platform and ride it to another Silver Fortune doll. Before continuing, I go back the way I came and through the door I skipped. This room is filled with the dolls, including the larger Brute doll that takes 2 hits to kill. Taking out the enemy spawns a silver key. I take it to the pool and swim across to the other end to reach another fenced off area and use that key to unlock the next door. This room has another locked door at the end, but as I run across it, the mats on the floor rise up and try flying into me. Destroying 3 of them spawns another silver key right in front of the door. In the next room I run right to end up through another door already. I run through the doll-filled corridor to the next room, which is another one where I have to kill all the enemies. These ones spawn me a gold key when I take them all out. Going back 2 rooms, and this room was the furthest I made it on my first rental because I couldn't cross this gap. I was still getting used to 3D games back then, and so the concept of jump closer and then use the chain didn't occur to me. I go past the locked door and through the one next to it first. It has a full heal and more pots filled with coins. I then go through that locked door with the gold key. The room seems empty, except for this lift in the corner I ride up to find what looks like massive rows of dumplings running along the floor cleaning it, I think. What I also notice is they use the same sound effect as the penguin's footsteps in Super Mario 64. Then through the door at the other end to reach a room with a locked door at the other end and some crushers dropping down. But first I go through this unlocked side door. It has another new enemy in these drummers flinging out more cannonballs. More important is another silver fortune doll in the back. In the previous room I wait for a crusher and then jump on top and ride it up. I get on the middle one at the top to find a silver key and unlock the door. This next room has me running across a narrow floor above the pool dealing with scarecrow turrets and spinning rows of spiked walls. About 2/3 of the way across I go through this door. This room has me chaining across more blocks to reach the next door. There's a door here and further on a giant hand blocking my access to the other half. I'll deal with that later, but first I go through the door. This room has another, more aggressive doll that not only runs but also tries to jump into me. I don't actually have to kill the enemies in this room as the silver key is already out in the open. Now to backtrack to that last pool room and go the rest of the way. Right in front of the door is this dungeon's Mr. Arrow, which places the boss's location on the map. Unlock the door and the next room has more of the cleaner dumplings and this new ninja that drops from the ceiling to throw shurikens at me. Into the next room and I just go forward to the next door. This room is mostly a huge pit, with the only way to cross being to wait for the crushers to drop and cross over them while they rise back up. Do that to get to the next room and ride one more lift to the top where Baron from the opening is waiting for us. When Goemon asks who he is, Baron introduces himself and says he's here to turn Oedo Castle into a beautiful stage. Goemon doesn't get it, and Abisamaru suggests getting him by the throat and roughing him up, calling him a weirdo. Baron takes offence to that, and also there's a laugh track at certain points. I have no idea if the jokes were lost in translation or if they're deliberately bad and that's the point, so I do kind of just get confused at times. Baron spins off and I follow him through the doors, finding another silver fortune doll just in the open on the way. Through one last door to the boss arena. Remember that giant hand blocking off a path earlier? Well, here's the head, Kongo. He starts by breathing fire at me, but since his head is locked in one spot and he can only spin, it's easy to avoid. Once he stops I just have to get my hits in on the glowing weak spot on his chin. I get enough hits in to break a chunk of his head off and he starts spinning the 4 lasers on his base around. Once again they're easy to avoid and I get a load of hits in while he's preparing his next fire breath. After that I smash a huge chunk off the other side of his head. Do it all again and the next lot explodes off the back of his head. A 4th time and his entire right eye no longer exists. I then do it a 5th time and then a 6th to finish him off. He's an easy enough first boss that even 16 years without playing I took him out without taking damage. On death he leaves an item behind called the Miracle Moon, but we have no idea what it does yet. I have one last door to go through and there's the Lord and Princess Yuki. Goemon asks what happened and the Lord describes what we saw in the opening cutscene. Goemon asks where Baron went off to and Yuki says he rushed off. The Lord asks Goemon and Abisamaru to track down and catch the ones responsible for all this. They accept and the Lord grants them the Super Pass so that we can finally leave Oedo Town through that door the gatekeepers were blocking me from. I'm moped back outside but I go straight back in. Remember Kongo's giant hand blocking that room? Well, with him dead, it's not there anymore. I chain across a pit and go through another door. This last room has a floor filled with coins and my 8th silver fortune doll, getting me my 2nd health upgrade. I then leave. These last 50 minutes I played so many times back when I was 13, and I never got bored of it. Back in town it looks like everyone's bored of alien invasions already. I return to that bridge with the gatekeepers and show them my super pass. You know, as a kid I was always expecting N64 games to be much shorter than they'd actually turn out to be. So after clearing Oedo Castle on my 2nd rental and entering Musashi, I was certain I was at the end of the game. Despite seeing 2 other playable characters in the opening I hadn't even met in game yet. Going left from the door takes me to this grate I can run underneath for another silver fortune doll. Up the slope nearby is a metal box I can't do anything with, keeping me from going that way. To the right from the door is another door. It leads into this tunnel that's pretty straightforward and I cross through it to the door at the other end. This takes me to the Shimano Iga crossing. It's a huge field with many steps to jump up at the other end. It's a little maze-like and you have to be careful to avoid landing on the slopes if you don't want to go sliding back down. But I reach the top and get running along the path while the sun sets. I can see a large house in the distance and so I just keep running along towards it. But then as I get closer, the house explodes. Goemon rushes over to find the Triton shell in the rubble, the item that summons the giant robot Impact. That can only mean that this house belonged to the series regular, the Wise Old Man. Of course, for someone who this is their first game, which for PAL players it most likely is, you have no idea who this guy is. It turns out that Baron is behind it. Goemon is so angry that he calls Baron a weirdo in a larger font. Either way, Baron's gonna squash them with his giant robot. So Goemon combats him by blowing into the Triton shell and being beamed aboard the gigantic robot, Goemon Impact, complete with his own vocal theme song. That's the second one so far. It was rare for N64 games in 1997 to even get one. Plus we get the cool sequence showing all of Impact's innards and how he works mechanically like it's a Sentai or Power Rangers robot coming together. It's cool. When I first rented, I saw Impact in the opening and didn't make the connection he was a giant robot, so his vacant eyes and wide open mouth stare were off-putting to me until I found out he wasn't human. After that sequence we get the roller skating part. I have to smash up as much of the country and the enemy machines as possible to build up Ryo for the upcoming fight. I also have to make sure I jump pits, jump over bridges and destroy huge buildings, as colliding with Eva will result in Impact being smashed into pieces, and while I wait for him to drop back in I miss out on vital Ryo gathering time. Despite you seeing me getting smashed up a lot, I really enjoy the Impact stuff in general. Roller skating a giant robot through the past destroying stuff with a cool theme song doesn't get old, but eventually I reach the end and the real battle starts. Baron's robot is the Kabuki themed Kashiwagi. Impact's most basic abilities are being able to punch, shoot lasers at the cost of Ryo, and use a giant chain pipe to grapple the boss and pull them in for a beating, like a few punches ending with a kick. Impact has many more secret moves, but for this fight I forgot to look up how to pull them off. I'll know in time for the next Impact battle though. Kashiwagi mainly fights by firing missiles that I can punch out for 5 Ryo each. He'll also try rushing into me with either boards or his palm, but I either catch him with a fist or the chain pipe first. He's also got this weird attack where he creates a projection of himself to fight for him while he hangs back, but you can punch it out as well. So on my second rental, the last time I played the game before rebuying it as a teenager, this was as far as I got. Rentals didn't come with the manuals and I had no way of figuring out how Impact works, so I just could not defeat Kashiwagi, and by the time we had to return the game, my 5 or 6 year old self was half convinced he was fighting the final boss. So when I got the game again and finally beat him at 13, it was one of the earliest I really am actually getting better at games moments I can remember. I actually do a bit worse here than I used to do on later playthroughs back then since I'm so out of practice, but I still win in the end first try and Kashiwagi is destroyed. Now that's what you want staring at you when you're being caught in an explosion. Impact drops Goemon off where he picked him up and sets off back to America to continue working on his film. All I can do now is continue along the road to reach the door to the town at the end. This is the entrance to Zazen Town. I pass through the gate in the middle and Yae, a secret agent ninja and regular playable character, jumps down. She's been following the peach-shaped UFO and had an inkling she'd run into Goemon. A narrator cuts in and explains that she's been investigating a number of strange events across Japan that all seem to have something to do with the mysterious Flake Gang. But all Yae has found out is that the higher ranked ones like Baron call themselves the Peach Mountain Shoguns. After Goemon makes crap fruit based jokes with their name, Yae agrees to join up, giving me the option to play as her as well. Right now she just has her katana, but I'll talk about her more when I get near some enemies as her. I go through the next door and I just adore Zazen Town's music. It's one of those tracks that I feel evokes that feeling of nostalgia even when you're hearing it for the first time. It's how I felt hearing it for the first time back in 2005. Across the bridge and through the door to enter one side of town. The dog here lets me know that Zazen Town is in the Kansai region, and that by playing this game I can become an expert on Japanese geography. Well, sadly I retained none of that knowledge by the time I was done. I've already wasted my lifetime's geography knowledge on memorising several Final Fantasy World maps. Talking to the humans gets me more distressing news, as many kids with dancing talent have been kidnapped in the Shikoku region. Even some kids from here have gone missing too. Going through the door on the left to the Gojo Ohashi Bridge, I am blocked by Benkei. He demands we hand over all our treasures if we want to cross the bridge. I decline and instead drop down below into the Duck Creek and run through the tunnel on the left. I jump up the steps to talk to this guy at the top and ask who he is, to be told his name is Ushiwaka. I even ask if he knows Benkei, who he says is like a follower to him. He figures out that we're asking because we need to deal with him. He'll help, but we have to do something to him first. He wants some fish from the creek. Thirst-free bluefish. So I just have to run around the surrounding screens in the water and walk into the fish he wants. 2 in this starting screen and then 1 more in the next one. Next he wants 5 yellow fish. 1 on the starting screen, 1 on the next, and 3 in the end screen with the waterfall. Finally he wants 8 red fish. 1 on the starting screen, 2 on the next, then 1 on the end screen. Back to the starting screen and take the other exit for 2 on the screen Benkei is on, then to the next one for the last 2. I hand all the fish over to Ushiwaka and he gives me the Achilles heel, telling me to just chuck it at Benkei. So I return to Benkei, and when he threatens me again, he can tell I'm ready for a fight. The narrator tells me to throw the Achilles heel the moment Benkei lands on the ground from a jump. I have to hit him 3 times within 50 seconds, and that's plenty of time. Do it too late and he jumps over it, do it too early and he blocks it. I get the first 2 hits easily, but the third takes until I have 25 seconds left. Benkei is gutted to be defeated in the exact same way he was by Ushikawa. In exchange for not telling anyone he lost to us, he'll not just allow us free unlimited usage of the bridge, but he'll also give us something from his collection. It turns out to be the robot ninja Sasuke, another series regular and the final playable character, but he's deactivated. Benkei obtained him when he fell out of the sky following the explosion at the wise old man's house. The explosion would have... I misspelled shut. The explosion would have shit him down. God, why are you and I right next to each other? The explosion would have shut him down and wrecked his batteries. So we have Sasuke and he's on the pause menu as if he's in our party, but we can't play as him yet. Before crossing the bridge I go back into town, up the steps and through the door at the north. There's a little pond in here but we won't be doing anything with that just yet. But I can hit this thing to the side of it until it gives me another silver fortune doll. Out of the other side I can explore the other side of town too, but there isn't much relevant yet, mainly many doors to future locations. Through one door to a bridge is a guy telling me that the door here that leads to Bizen is locked as a result of some kid messing around with it. I finally go through the door behind Benkei to reach Yamato, another place with great music. I go down the slopes and pass by the huge temple here, which is locked. There are 2 paths to exits from the temple and I take the one on the right. It leads to the Yamato Turtle Stone Bamboo Shrine. At the shrine there is a rock I can push in each of the cardinal directions, each with signs letting me know which is which and a hint of what will happen when I push the rock that way. First I push the rock to the south to get myself another silver fortune doll. I leave the rest for now and go back to the main Yamato screen, then take the path on the left. It leads to a separate bamboo forest screen with whatever these things flying around are. It's a short screen filled with enemies and I make my way to the other side. I come out on the path from the key channel to Awaji Island. Once I make it out of the tunnel I can see this building on the edge of a cliff, but first there's the key coffee shop to enter. A woman inside tells me that the other building is the tourist centre of Awaji Island that can transport me anywhere. But before going there, I realise my brain fart with leaving the turtle shrine when I did and go back. I push the rock to the east which teleports me to this tiny island on the key Awaji screen. I then run through the red gate here to be teleported onto a boat. I swim over to the nearby rocks which the sign tells me are the husband and wife rocks. I cross the bridge from the smaller rock to the bigger rock and then climb to the top of it to find my 12th silver fortune doll and my 3rd health upgrade. Running through the gate here puts me closer to the shore, so I swim back to land and get running along this cliff to reach the Awaji Tourist Centre. Halfway along I can drop down to the left to another silver fortune doll already. I finally use Yae and the reason she's my favourite to play as is simple. Just the sound effect and the perfectly clean slice in half and watching the halves bounce about for a second is just so satisfying. I go inside the tourist centre and the woman inside says they can carry us straight to Shikoku with their dragon. Or he could if the dragon hadn't gone wild and become unrideable. We offer to help and they send us into the machine that transports us onto the dragon's back. We can just barely see a machine on the dragon's head. However, this dragon is pretty long and we're dropped off right at the end of his tail. As I run along it I have the lion heads and the things from the bamboo forest coming for me. But I reach the end and find the culprit behind the dragon's turn. Through a speaker on the machine we can hear another of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, Colon. He confirms that using the machine, they've had control over the dragon and have been using him to kidnap kids with dancing talent. We also get confirmation that Baron survived Kashiwagi's destruction, as he managed to tell the others about the party and how annoying he finds them. With that I have to take on the control machine. It spins around shooting cannonballs, the yellow glow meaning it's invincible. Once it slows down, the glow wears off and I can give it a good whack. It then repeats the spinning and shooting, with each hit making its fire slightly more aggressive. In the end it takes 6 hits to defeat and the resulting explosion sends the dragon into freefall. But it's fine, as I said earlier, this game has no fall damage and we land at Kompira Mountain in Sanuki. The dragon lands a bit more violently though, and in his human form, Koryuta. He has no idea what has been going on since the Shoguns took control of him. They fill him in on what he did and he's pretty upset to find out, thinking he's evil for what they made him do. While they try to cheer him up, Yae asks if he remembers anything at all, like where he took the kids. He just barely remembers the Dogo Hot Springs to the west at Iyo. Goemon reassures him that he will save the kids, saying that Koryuta should go back to doing his job. In return, Koryuta gives them his flute, saying that if they play that flute, he will pick them up and drop them off at most of the places they've already visited, this game's version of fast travel. Goemon can't play the flute though, and when choosing between Abisamaru and Yae, he lets Yae have it with no second thoughts. Koryuta reminds me that he can only hear the flute outdoors and then takes off. Well, since I'm here at Kompira Mountain, I may as well climb it. This is 1997, so we're still in the time of stairs requiring constant jumps to climb. At the top I go through the door to reach the second block, where there are boulders dropping down the stairs. I just jump my way up the stairs to reach the door to the third block. Here the stairs are littered with the small cannon enemy. They're no threat, and at the top of the stairs is a coffee shop. Gotta enter them all to get them as dragon travel locations. I then go through the gate next to it to reach the fourth block. I have to avoid both boulders and small cannons up 2 flights of stairs until I reach the red gate at the top. This takes me to the Compira Shrine. I check out the little tourist hut next to it where the guy inside tells me to offer 5 Ryo to the shrine to get help from God. So I do. I aggressively throw 5 coins into the box for the God of Money to grant me the ability to light the rest of my money on fire with the Medal of Flames. By charging a Ryo throw, I can throw a fiery Ryo for the trade-off with it costing 5 Ryo instead of 1. I have an uneventful trek back down the mountain and go through the door next to where I started. This puts me in Fokipoke Village in Awa. The first woman I speak to says the village is famous for its dancing, so you better believe this place was hit hard by the child kidnappings. I go through the door in the opposite corner to reach their farm. I can't do much in here yet, and so I go down and through the next door. On this screen, a guy claims to have a reward for those who save the kidnapped kids. Through the next door and more people talking about the missing children. I then leave town through the door up the stairs to end up in Tosa. I follow the road, down the hill and across the bridge. Then to the left and up this hill to the door the road ends at. This takes me to the Vine Bridge. This bridge kicks my arse. It makes you let your guard down by putting gaps in the bridge so you think you know when to jump, but then more planks will fall out underneath and you fall into the river if you don't react in time. There's also a silver fortune doll on a rock underneath the bridge and I spend a while trying to fall through the right spot to land on it, but I get it eventually. I then get across that bridge and through the door at the end, taking me into Iyo. I follow the road here as it goes uphill and then at the top is a sign saying that the Dogo Hot Springs are to the left, but first I finish following that road until I reach the Iyo coffee shop to add it as a fast travel location. One guy says that he saw a tiny hole next to the hot springs entrance that only a dwarf could fit inside. Another says that the hot springs are closed though. One woman says that she saw a dwarf in Zazentown. So I use the flute for the first time and walk back to Zazentown. If I have one complaint about the flute, it's that I wish I could skip the animation with Koryuta's flying. It gets old quick seeing it every time I want to fast travel. So we're not actually looking for a literal dwarf here. If we return to Ushiwaka, he's suddenly tiny. He tells me he achieved this by eating 8 sweets in a row from the Golden Temple. He says if I want that power as well, to meet him there. The Golden Temple is on the opposite side of town through this door. Ushiwaka is waiting and has the narrator explain the upcoming minigame to me. But I can explain over the footage of me playing it. I'm a Bisumaru in the temple's cupboard and I have just under 100 seconds to collect 8 sweets when they drop from the ceiling. Every few seconds the cupboard will open and this abomination will have a look around. If they see me, they'll shake the cupboard throwing a tantrum and damaging objects will fall down. I also have to avoid being hit 3 times, but it's fine as I manage it without getting hit with 32 seconds remaining. With this, Ebisumaru has learned the Mini Ebisu skill and can shrink whenever he wants. The downside is that while small, he can't attack. Before I return to those hot springs, I want to use this new skill to pick up some new items. Back in the Yamato Turtle Shrine, I push the rock north to be warped to the temple in the main screen with its doors now open. This place is just a lot of climbing. After the first ladder there are these platforms I can jump across, but if I shrink and drop through the gap underneath them, I can land on a platform with a silver fortune doll. It takes a few attempts to get the fall right before I can get it. The rest of the climb up is just very basic platform jumping and ladder climbing. On the way up I can grab a surprise pack that grants me an extra life. You can buy these, but there are also a few like this hidden away for free throughout the world. Also at the top is another silver fortune doll. That's my 16th, meaning my 4th health expansion. Next up I return to the farm in Fokipoke Village. One of the haystacks has another silver fortune doll hidden underneath it that only Mini Ebisu can reach. That's all, and I walk back to Iyo's coffee shop and do a short walk from it to the Dogo Hot Springs. The doors are in fact locked, so I have Ebisumaru shrink and go through this tiny hole. This takes me to the screen, Iyo 2. The first thing I find here are these little fire breathing things. Following this road all the way to the end takes me to the hot spring, where I can crouch in it for a few seconds to heal. But halfway along that path is a tunnel off to the side. I have to shrink under the grating, then run along these slopes to reach a ladder. I then have to use a chain pipe to cross these platforms. Once I turn the corner, I drop through the first gap to find another silver fortune doll. I make my way back up and jump the gaps this time, going uphill to the door to the second dungeon, the Ghost Toys Castle. I can't damage the ghosts here yet, but first I have to light these Daruma torches with my flaming Ryo to open the door to the next room. Right away there's a crane game and a camera to win, but with no power on I can't operate it. So I go through the next door. The next room has rows of spikes rising and advancing from the floor. They're easy enough to jump over and I reach the next door. The next room is filled with small cannons. I run forward until I reach a fork, then keep jumping forward and up the platforms to this big head thing where there's another silver fortune doll. Then left of the fork takes me to the next room. This one has me running along and jumping across a narrow path filled with rising and lowering spikes. On the way through is this dungeon's Mr. Elephant. Then I cross the rest of it to the next door. This room has a new enemy, some bouncing Daruma dolls. There's also this strange seed I can pick up in one of the corners. Killing all the dolls in here spawns a silver key. But before unlocking the door, I take the seed to this lift and ride it to the top of this machine. I drop it in the soil at the top and it grows into a flower that spits out many coins. Then unlocking and through that door. This next room has me jumping across what I think are giant shogi tiles. The door to the left is unlocked and the one opposite the entrance is locked. But near that locked door is a very narrow tightrope I can try to walk across. It takes a couple tries and in the end I rely on Mini Ibisu to make it easier. At the end is a golden fortune doll. If the silver ones are the heart pieces, these are the full heart containers and grant a health upgrade on their own. This has me halfway to maximum health now. I then take that unlocked door. This room has a lift that lowers when jumped on. It leads to more shogi tiles to jump across. On the way I can see a small cage under the water, but I can't do anything to reach it for a while. I just keep following the tiles until I reach another lift at the end going up. Through the door at the top and I'm back in the second room with the crane game, but behind one of the walls. I can grab a silver key here and my 20th silver fortune doll for another health increase. I also jump on this switch to restore power to the crane, so I jump over the fence and try it out. I just have to step on the buttons to get it to work. It can be quite picky and not grab the camera even if it's making contact, but I get it on my third try. I drop it out and grab it. The wind-up camera is an item for Abisumaru. Using this will have the flash reveal hidden items, along with making the ghost enemies solid and killable. With that and my new key, I return to the room with the golden fortune doll and unlock the door in the back. Right away in the next room I grab this dungeon's Mr. Arrow, now to take out all those ghosts. One thing to remember is that you need to hold the button to charge the camera for a couple seconds first. I manage to wipe them all out at once when they gather around me. I then jump up this red tube thing to the left. At this point the dungeon starts to gain more instruments in its music. Transformed Uedo Castle had this as well, but it's more noticeable here. I really like this touch. I reach these platforms with the rising spikes, but first take a door on the left. It's filled with ghosts and taking them all out gets me another silver key. Back in the last room and I jump across the spikes to use that key on the door at the end. The next room has what I assume are supposed to be little tin soldiers or something walking around. I go up the stairs here and reach another lift that takes me up to another locked door and an unlocked one to the left. Through that one is a room where up the ramp is a row of moving, spinning top platforms. Have to be careful as the red water underneath them is damaging to be in if you fall into it. I found the first jump tricky and it took a few tries, but the rest of them were easy and I grabbed the silver key at the end and then use it on the door in the previous room. The following room is a massive spinning platforms all over the place, but first I jump in the water and swim to the middle of the room to find another silver fortune doll. I can also skip a lot of the platforming from here and ride the nearest platforms to the doors on the left or right. The door on the left is locked, so I ride to the unlocked door on the right. This is a simple kill all the enemies room for the next silver key. I then ride the tops to the locked door to the left of it in the previous room. I ignore the rest of this room for now and go through the door opposite from where I entered. It just has pots with money and health, so I go back and jump across all these skipping ropes to reach the door on the other end. Using the camera in this room reveals all the invisible holes in the floor so that I can safely cross to grab the gold key and the surprise pack in the corner. Back to the spinning platform room and directly across from the door I've returned from is the door with the gold lock. In this next room another extra bit is added to the music. There's a locked door all the way at the end and an unlocked one halfway I go through. It leads to the giant pool table. I have to whack all the balls into the pockets in order, with the game helpfully putting an arrow over the next ball I have to pocket. It's easy enough and gives me a silver key for the locked door in this room, not the one in the previous room. This one is filled with spinning spiked balls, ghosts, small cannons and narrow paths. But it's also a very small room so it doesn't take long to reach the diamond key at the end. I go back 2 rooms and use it to unlock the dungeon's final door. There's a sign telling me how to damage the upcoming boss and I ride the lift up. Waiting for me is a giant Daruma doll. It reveals itself to be a robot with legs and claws, Darumanyo. It'll jump towards me and swing a claw, but it's slow so I can easily avoid it. To damage it I have to use the camera to reveal its weak point, a massive beating heart. I then give the heart a whack before it jumps back and recovers. At this point it actually starts damaging me by shooting missiles at me. I'm too close to avoid them since I was too busy focusing on charging the camera. But the heart is revealed again and gets another hammering. It counters this by trying to stab me with both claws at once, but once again it's easy to avoid. Then comes the next heart attack. After that it just starts cycling between those 3 attacks, and on the 10th hit it explodes, leaving behind another strange object like Kongo did, this one the Miracle Flower. One of the Peach Mountain Shoguns reveals himself, and it's Colon, the one using the control machine on Koryuta. He has a whine, saying that he was only teaching the kids the Peach Mountain style of dancing. We're then interrupted by a hologram of the mystery man from the intro. Goemon asks who he is, and he introduces himself as the leader of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, but then drags on when it comes to his name due to doing it through song. He eventually reveals his full name as Spring Breeze Dancing. When Goemon asks what Dancing has up his sleeves, we get to see that he's just as out there as our main too. He also just decides that Abisamaru is called Antonio, Colon saying that Dancing decides what he's going to call everyone he meets just based on what he feels fits that person. He tells Colon to withdraw, deciding that Goemon's name is now Fernandez. Colon does drop that their goal is called the Great Stage Plan before he leaves, saying that we should under no circumstances go to the Chugoku region, definitely not. We never actually see the kids in this place, but they are returned home off screen. So, the Chugoku region is next. At this point, it's now time to get Sasuke fixed up too. We've been carrying his lifeless body around long enough. I start by fast travelling back to Zazen Town. Remember the screen with the bridge where the one guy was complaining about a kid jamming the door? Well, we've saved that kid now. He'd built a safety stopper system into the door, and with him back, we can open the door. It leads to Kurashiki in Bizen. As I follow the path available to me, there's a locked door here, and then further on a cracked wall I can't destroy yet, and across the bridge there's another one. I then cross another bridge and go through the door there, taking me to Izumo. I can go left or right here and choose to go right. I follow the path all the way to the end here and go through the next door. It takes me to a dune in Inaba. We won't be seeing much of this place really. I follow the path in the sand, meeting new enemies. There's the kites flying around and more cannonball spitting enemies rising from the sand. Checking the map, I start in the northwest and I want to reach the oasis in the southeast. It's a non-eventful trip, but when I reach the oasis I can swim to this giant battery in the middle, being Sasuke's #1 battery, just need another. There's also another Silver Fortune doll in the water as well. I then just go back the way I came and return to Izumo. I then follow the road all the way to the other end on the left, stopping in its coffee shop to register it with Koryuta. A woman inside says she saw a big electric tube on top of a huge tree behind the Izumo shrine at the top of the mountain. She asks me to take a photo of it. Back outside, I go back right a bit and up the road going up the mountain until I reach the shrine at the top and go through the door. It leads to the lake with a big tree. Surrounding the tree are a load of platforms and I climb all the way to the top of the tree using them. I use the camera like the woman in the coffee shop suggested and it makes Sasuke's #2 battery appear. With the batteries obtained, Sasuke is active again. He has no idea what's been happening, and when Goemon asks if he remembers the explosion that knocked his batteries out, he says he has a glitch in his memory that he'll have to get the wise old man to fix. That's when they fill him in on the wise old man's house exploding and him having not been seen since. He wants revenge on the Peach Mountain Shoguns responsible for his death and joins the party. Sasuke can fight with his kunai and cut enemies in half like Yae can. He can throw them at the cost of Ryo, and he can also throw bombs that can destroy cracked walls. This is only my second time playing as Sasuke since I only got far enough without saving to play as him once. But he's gonna have to wait until next episode as I'm cutting it off here. It's been such a good time getting to relive this after so many years. Without the knowledge, all my progress will be lost when I turn the game off. But next episode, almost everything past this point I'll be playing for the first time.